right, let's talk about now when an antecedent is omitted from a Latin relative clause. And do you remember how I told you that sometimes a relative pronoun is left out in English, but it's always in Latin? Well, sometimes in Latin, an antecedent will be missing. So if you look at this sentence, qui bene vivit bis vivit, it's a proverb. Who lives well lives twice is the literal translation. But we're left with a question. Who lives well? Who lives twice? So the verb tells us that the subject is singular. Now, we wouldn't say they lives well, right? So he must be the understood subject. It must be singular. So what is the relative clause here? He who lives well lives twice. Okay, so the relative clause starts with a who lives well. It can't be the whole thing because we can't have a separate, we can't have not an independent clause and a dependent clause together. So this is actually, so if we can insert the he right here, this would show you that this part is the complete sentence. He lives twice. So the relative clause is who, starts with the relative pronoun, who lives well. So remember what we do? We have to substitute the antecedent, which we already know to be he, put it in place of the who. So he lives well. That tells us that the antecedent must be in nominative, right? So here we have the nominative antecedent, is. Remember, is, ia, id, is. Is qui bene vivit bis vivit. He who lives well lives twice, or he lives twice who lives well. That's when the antecedent is omitted. So let's look at this one. Nemo dat quod non habet. Now, that's a proverb. No one gives what he does not have. This one's a little harder. I want you to start by identifying the relative clause. Remember that it begins with the relative pronoun. So, what's the relative pronoun in the English? Start with there. Okay, it's what. Okay, so the whole relative clause would have to be afterwards. What he does not have is the relative clause. So what becomes the independent clause? The independent clause needs to be what's ever left. No one gives. All right, here's the question. No one gives is not a complete sentence. What are we missing? No one is the subject. Give is the verb. No one gives. What does no one give? No one gives that. No one gives that which he does not have. And what case would that be? No one gives. What is given? That. So it has to be accusative. And the accusative, we're going to use qui, qua, quod, right? The accusative is quod. So the antecedent, I need to fill it in the right place for you. The antecedent, I'm going to put it down here for you. Sorry about that. The antecedent is quod. So nemo dat id quod non habet. No one gives that which he does not have. So change the English to have good grammar. And no one gives what he does not have.